Before I get started, because I only wandered in 20, 30 minutes ago, so just quickly, who's here? Yeah, you're here. Great. Great. We're all here. Anybody not here? Okay, so we got we had four probably. We got what we got the Oilers, the Flames, and the Bruins. Yeah. Okay, and the Oilers, they suck and they're losing all the time anyway. The Flames won, and the Bruins are going to start losing because one of their best players is sitting out for the next couple of weeks because he was stupid again. So who, nonprofit side? Who? Okay, and so you guys are the, funny how that's divided, eh? There's no, like, fence or... I'm only wearing the profit hat. Okay. Some of us are dual. Yeah, I work for a nonprofit, but not on purpose. It's because sometimes I don't run it very well. Okay, so, and you guys are HR specialists, generalists, HR because you have to be? Yeah. Okay. Everybody loves being in HR? Yeah. I'm just curious. My background, I didn't come out of HR, although I did, but I didn't. I spent close to 20 years in the Canadian military, and every officer is an HR director, whether they like it or not. It's all about looking after the troops, exactly the kind of stuff that you heard earlier about looking after the employees. If you don't look after the troops, bad things happen. When I was on basic training, basic officer training in Chilliwack, BC, many, many years ago, we had a guy, a sergeant, who was attached to us. It was like he'd been around since the Korean War. He joined as a boy soldier during the Korean War. He'd been a sergeant about 6 or 7 times in his career. Busted back down, come back up, busted back down, came back up. And he took us aside at the end of the thing and he said, this is actually really simple. All this stuff we taught you while you were here, yeah, it's all good, but it's really, really simple. You're standing in front of a bunch of professional killers with loaded weapons. And the only reason that you're still alive is because they feel safer with you than without you. Never forget that. And, well, here I am 35 years later, and I haven't forgotten it yet. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was terrifying. I just about wet myself. And so, anyway, coming out of the military, competency is everything we do. It's the alpha and the omega. It's everything. See if I can figure out how to make this thing work. Hey, here we go. So, and for me, I mean, this is my church. This is my religion. So welcome to my church. This is what I do. Competency is everything. It's the be all and end all. It's the reason why organizations function at all. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We know a little bit about who you are and that, but you guys all came here specifically for this, right? Right? Yeah. Just agree with me. Okay, I'm delusional, but you can agree with me. But now, what do you want to get out of this? Right? It's your session. Skills? Dealing with people? Anything else? Lunch? Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a whole slide dedicated to that. Anything else? New ideas? Some of these are really old ideas, just people don't pay much attention to them. Anything else? All right. So we'll try and give you your money's worth. You guys all paid to be here, right? Oh, yeah. Okay. Guarantee you'll get your money's worth. So first off, why we do this, why it matters, what some of the ROI figures, and what that means, in terms of investment in people versus business performance. There's some really cool data coming out now. One of the neat things about this big data revolution is we get lots of data now, and we can start tracking some of this stuff. We've always known there was a relationship, but we're actually starting to get dollar figure attachment to it now. I want to look at some ideas around organizational structure and design and how that impacts the way you develop people and the kind of organization you're likely to wind up with because of the way you're designed. That sounds mysterious, but it's actually not. And then we're going to go through some steps around competencies and how to build them. And then you'll get a nice little exercise at the end where we're actually going to write a competency-based job description, or at least get started on one. And you're going to find that that's a lot harder than you think it is, just so as you know. But you get to do that with lunch. So that's compensation. Is anybody working with a competency-based system now within their organization? We're having... Good question, because that's my next slide. Okay, well, there's lots of people who are, who are organizations that claim to be working around a competency-based system. Some of them are fooling themselves. Okay, a competency-based, well, let's start with what is competency. Okay, what it is and why it matters and why you should care. When we talk about competency, we're talking about applied skill, knowledge, applied in a particular context for a particular outcome. Okay? When you look at a competency-based resume or a competency-based job description, you're looking at not the task list and not the qualifications list, but the outcomes necessary from the work and the underlying, what we call meta skills, because we're consultants and we use stupid words. But it's the underlying things that allow that output to happen. Okay? And often that's not a technical skill set. Okay? That'll make more sense in a minute if it didn't make sense yet. Okay? So I'm going to ask, how many people are using competencies that way within their organization, actually thinking about that stuff? It's both, okay? When we talk about competency, that's the application of a whole basket of skills. Some are technical and hard skills, some are soft skills, but in a context for an outcome. And what we found is, just interestingly enough, is that the technical competencies by themselves are not enough to drive performance. Never have been, never will be. So when you're looking, and this is, I'll get ahead of myself, but there's an organization down in the States. I'll tell a story that I told up in Fort Mac, but you weren't there, so you don't know I'm going out of sequence. There's an organization down in the States, tech firm. They do e-business software, weird web-based stuff. I'm not a tech guy, so I don't understand any of it. They started in 2006 hiring the same way that everybody else hires in the tech business. Let's hire the best grads from the best schools with the best degrees. And what they found was, first off, they didn't have enough money to compete with Facebook and Microsoft and Google and Amazon and all those other guys. But they tried. They hired the ones that Google and Facebook and Amazon couldn't, didn't want and they could afford. And what they wound up with, to quote one of their senior executives, was an engineering department full of really, really, really talented jackasses. who could not work with each other, did not fit, couldn't work together, and in the end, half of them left anyway. Because they weren't there, they were there for the experience and the paycheck, not for the organization. Some of this ties into exactly what you were hearing earlier. So in 2008, they made a radical decision and they fired their entire engineering staff, which is a big thing to do when you're a tech company. And they started doing these things they call Super Saturdays. And they would go and they'd still recruit the same way that they used to. They'd bring in the prospective hires on a Saturday to the corporate campus, and they would run them through a series of orientation sessions and different things and games and Q&A and everything else, while they're under the observation of the rest of the staff. And the rest of the staff has a little app on their smartphone, and they're looking for specific behaviors, and it's sort of like Big Brother, right? I mean, after about the first 10 minutes, you forget you're on camera, and they're constantly being observed. And what the staff is observing is how they interact. They're looking for the soft skills, because they all know how to code. I mean, coding's coding, and whatever you learned in school is obsolete before you graduated anyway. Let's face it, right? That's why Google doesn't even look at resumes anymore. They want to see what you can actually do. So they observe, and they're looking for things like, what kind of questions do these people ask? And who do they ask them to? And how do they react when someone else asks a question? Do they go, ah, or do they engage? And all of this information is going back to the war room, and they're keeping score. And then they hire the people who they want to work with, because they've observed them as themselves. Because resumes can lie, and degrees are meaningless, and technical credentials don't matter. What they wanted was people who could work together. They hired those people on the basis of those interpersonal skills, right? Now, their productivity is up, their quality is up, their turnover's down, they have a much better organization, people like coming to work, and they're beating the market. So, that's a long way of answering your question, but it's both. But the ones that are most important are these underlying meta skills. The ability to work with other people, collaborate, communicate, create together. Because nobody can do this alone. Right? I'm like 20 slides behind already. So the thing about these competencies and critical skills is they touch everything in your business. This is why HR is the one strategic multiplier for your organization, right? It's all about people. There's no such thing as proprietary technologies anymore, ask the Chinese, right? And even if there is, someone will reverse engineer it just as fast as you can make it, okay? Everybody pays the same because everybody's fighting around in a marketplace for their raw materials. That's set by a market. The cost you pay for your talent is set by a market within a range, right? The only thing that separates your organization from any other organization is the skills and competencies of the people, right? That's how you win. The difference in my world between a losing unit and an elite unit in the military is all around those competencies and the ability of those people to work together seamlessly and collaborate as a well-oiled machine, as a team. So when I got into the real world after I left the military, I thought all this stuff was just common sense, right? It's the way things work. And then I found out that no, it's actually not. And most organizations don't think this way. And when I came to Alberta at the end of '99 and started working in the oil patch, I realized that they have this very disposable person mentality in the oil patch. Anybody ever worked in the patch? Lots of fun, ain't it? You know, and the idea is, you know, if you know, I'm going to hire you, you're going to do this piece of a job, I'm going to put you in a little box. If you piss me off, I can get rid of you and hire somebody else to take me until after lunch to train them, and we carry on. That's not a sustainable business model unless you've got untold wealth, which of course the oil patch doesn't have anymore. And they're finding that this huge difficulty now in getting people to work and not paying them to shut up. First time I was in Fort Mac, I got into a traffic jam at the Tim Hortons. Because, does that happen here? Okay. The traffic jam wasn't because everybody needed a double-double. The traffic jam was because someone abandoned a truck in the drive-thru because someone offered them a few dollars an hour to go work for them. That was Fort Mac, 2006. At the heart of the boom. And I was like, sure. Off they went. I won't tell you whose truck it was. But we had to wait to get it towed away so the rest of us could get our double-double. Ruined my day. So we also talk about these critical skills, you know, and what are they? And again, sometimes it's technical. Most times the critical skills for any position are not the technical skills. Right? And more, it's those underlying, what we used to call soft skills. I was in Europe in October. They're now calling them transversal skills because they had to invent a new word because no one likes calling them soft skills. But those are the things that are cross-functional. They're industry and occupation agnostic. And they don't relate. These are things that you can carry with you into any job, and they're the underlying factor in performance. It's those soft skills, the critical pieces. Okay? So you learn how to do these things. All skills are defined as learned behaviors. Okay? And these are not latent or abilities. It's not, you know, you can't learn to see better, but you can learn to communicate better. Does that make sense? Okay. And then the criticals are the ones that are absolutely critical and important to the job that you're doing. Okay. And when we look at this, we find that the ones that are generally the most critical are not the technical skills. So I'm ahead of myself because I answered the question already, but we're talking about knowledge, skills, and abilities that apply to produce an effective performance. So in a particular context, what does that look like? Right? Okay? So when we talk about this, it's not only the what, but it's the how you go about doing it. Right? And that's important. So the question is, oops, how did that? That's not the same slide. You know what? Someone's got my wrong slide. Yeah, here we go. Where am I? That's what I want. Okay. So, the question is, what kind of an organization do you want? Okay? Do you want an organization that performs at a high level, where people are empowered and are happy and are productive? Or do you want a cattle barn? Okay? And we have a thing we talk about a Dreyfus scale, proficiency scale. Everybody's seen one if you've never heard of it. Okay? Novice to expert, and what that looks like. These slides are on your stick, but The idea is if you have a novice, the characteristics of a novice, you probably can't read it from here, but that's okay because I'm going to read it for you. But novices follow rigid checklisted procedures. They follow the rules. They don't have any discretion. They never have any discretion to apply, mostly because they don't know how, okay? Any knowledge they have has no context. It's just, this is what I do. Okay? An advanced beginner moves a little bit further along where they're starting to have a little bit more useful skill, a little bit more knowledge. They still don't really know where it applies or how or why. They still follow the rules. You get up to the level of competent where people are now can start making judgments. Start understanding why we're doing it this way and when not to do it this way. Up to proficient, and then finally to expert. If we ask companies, they all say they want to be here, right? Everybody wants proficient, competent. They want their company to operate that way. And yet your organization, your operating procedures, the way you hire and the way you train, how did I do that? The way you hire and the way you train forces you to here, where everybody follows the rules, follows the checklist, follows the SOP, and gets put in a box and stays there. Okay? You can't get to here with an organization that's designed to operate this way. But we hire people for here because we want them to be smart and bright and use their degree and all that other stuff. Then we stick them in a box and make them operate here. Why do you suppose they get disengaged? And they've got brains the size of small planets and we won't let them use them, right? Gallup did a study in the States a couple years ago. Close to 70% of employees in US firms are either disengaged or actively disengaged. Actively disengaged means they're actually sabotaging their employer at work. 70%. Because, the interesting, when you cross-reference that data against age and education, who are the most disengaged? What do you think? What do you think? There's no right now. I'm just curious. What do you think? What would you guess? What does your gut tell you? You win the prize. Okay? When you cross-reference against age and education, what they find is the most disengaged employee is a young person with a university degree who's been at the company for about 1.5 years. Just long enough to realize that they're in a dead-end job. And they were hired for their brain and they're not allowed to use it. Okay? That's costing, in the US, something in the neighborhood of, they reckon it was like $25 billion a month. Not a year, a month to the US economy. By bringing people to work and forcing them to live in this box. So think about that. Think about your organization. We all have procedures, okay? There's a guy named Alex Usher, writes a blog called Higher Education Strategies, One Thought to Start Your Day. It's focused on education. All of us competency geeks read it. And he put a thing out last year where he was, because they were always talking about, we need more welders. We need more people with technical skills. We need more of this. In fact, most of those skills are going to be replaced by robots anyway. What we need are what he referred to as the Nordstrom philologists. Okay. Anybody ever been to Nordstrom's? The department store? Okay. Big, fancy, high-end. incredible customer service. All about customer service, right? A Nordstrom employee is empowered to serve the customer and make the customer leave happy, right? That's pretty much the only rule. A philologist is we don't actually do this anymore, but in education, you go back to the beginnings of Western education, philology was taking ancient text in strange languages, translating them and relating them to each other to acquire the knowledge of people that you had no way of otherwise knowing about. So these connections between disparate pieces of knowledge and then applying them to make new knowledge. So a Nordstrom philologist has the mental gymnastics capability to do that, to take all of this information and decide on the spot what to do with the customer service skills and empowerment that comes from being a Nordstrom employee. Now, if we had organizations that were designed that way and we built people to operate that way, A, going to work would be a lot more fun. B, we'd get a lot more done, and people would come to work and they'd be engaged and they'd be happy because they'd always be growing. They'd always be learning. And we would create an organization that operates here. But it means teaching people how to think at an early age and then letting them think at a later age, right? So it comes down to, why are you in business at all? Okay? Everybody's heard of Peter Drucker? All us old guys have heard of Peter Drucker. I saw these nods at the back of the room. Yeah. For us consultants, he's like Yoda. Okay? He's usually a little brighter than that. He doesn't sit in the shadows. But Drucker, well, he's dead now, but he said the only reason for being in business was to create and keep a customer. You can apply that to any organization, because every organization, profit or non-profit, has customers, has clients, has a reason for existence. You take that to heart, you say, okay, well then the only reason my organization exists is to do that. Then everything I do in my organization has to support the creation of value for my customer. And who creates the value for your customer? The employee. Usually the people at the front line, the lowest paid, least trained, least respected, most disposable, but they're the face of the franchise. So, someone asked about personal skills and competencies and that. Okay. Who here is the supervisor of some description? All of you? Okay. How many of you have a detailed job description? Some of you? Okay. For those of you who don't, there's your job description. Okay. That's what they pay you for. Achieve the task, and the task is generating value for your customer, however your organization defines that. You do that by developing people and getting them to work well together. That's your job. That's it. And what we find is it's these two pieces down here, the developing of the competency, is what allows this to happen all by itself. So you can back off and leave the organization alone and let it do things. And you don't have to. You don't have to micromanage it, because people are empowered and they know what to do and they just get on with it. Okay? It's the difference between, who here's coached kids? Okay? Timbit soccer, whatever. Timbit hockey. I mean, little kids, 5, 6 years old, right? Where are the coaches? Right on the field with them, trying to sort things out. Actually physically moving people around, right? It's as autocratic as you can be. Why? Because they don't know what to do. They need that. The kids accept it because they have no experience or skills of their own. Try and do that with an NHL team. Oilers could probably use it right now. I'll give you that. Okay? But it won't work. because no one needs to be treated that way once they have some skills. So if you spend the time down here and develop those skills, develop the... Oh, I get it. I'll stay back here. That's cool. So I can just leave this here now.
Check it out now.
And I can just go. Okay. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, so if you run your organization and as a leader you're focused on those bottom two circles, guess what? All you got to do is drop the puck and make sure that there's fresh towels and water on the bench. And then you can focus on things that you should be focusing on, which is not the day-to-day. It's things that are in the future. Because that's why they pay you. That's how you add value as a manager, as a leader, to the work of the people who you lead. Otherwise, what are you good for? If you're doing their job for them, what are you good for? Okay? So this is important, and this is a organizational philosophy, Org Dev 101. If you look at this and you look at why you do this, it's important. And if you do this and you focus on this, the value to your organization is unbelievable. I mean, dollars and cents, okay? BDC, the Business Development Bank of Canada. I'm going to start talking faster now because the lunch is coming. But the Business Development Bank of Canada did a study a couple years ago, thousands of companies in Canada, high growth companies. Number 2 strategy is build your talent pool, because number 1 strategy is look after your customer. Okay? Building your people builds your business. The Association for Talent Development in the US every year does a state of the industry report looking at investment in people. Okay? And they take this and they measure it on a percentage of payroll. Okay? Companies that spend a higher percentage of payroll on employee development outperform the other companies within their sector who don't. It's not a coincidence. And the break line comes at about 2% of payroll. And then the curve on performance is almost logarithmic beyond that point. It's been that way. I've been looking at these things since the early 2000s. This is not new, okay? In the construction industry, the Apprenticeship Forum, investing in basic skills, essential skills, basic literacy for an apprentice. Depending on the sector of apprenticeship, anywhere from $3 to north of $25. If you're in the Build Force Canada, which is what used to be the Construction Sector Council, specific to the construction industry, $26.34 for every dollar invested in productivity gains, safety improvements, and quality gains. For every dollar invested in making sure that they can read the manual or the blueprint. Okay? And these are the lowest level of essential skills of competencies. If you invest in higher level skills, again, it's logarithmic. Okay? Wayward Steel, Edmonton, one of my clients. Okay? They started focusing specifically on doing things right as a result of nearly killing some guy on a mod site in Leduc about 5 years ago. Nisku, probably, but anyway. Just about ripped the guy's head off, which is easy to do when you're moving 10 tons of steel around on the end of a boom. And decided, despite having a world-class safety program that had won them awards, wasn't good enough. Throughout their safety program, started focusing entirely on do things right. Do things competently. 5 million man-hours now without an LTA. Lost time accident. In an industry that's lucky to go a week without putting someone in the hospital. Okay? Millions and millions of dollars in savings. Just by focusing on competency. Canadian Natural. These were really pertinent slides when I was in Fort Mac the other week. But CNRL, okay, the bolted joint integrity management. This is bolting up flanges in refineries when you're doing maintenance. Okay. When they leak, which is quite common after doing maintenance on them, it's very expensive because it causes things like explosions and fires, and people get hot bitumen poured all over them, and it's nasty. Okay. Since they started doing this, which is a half a day's training for maintenance crews to make sure they're bolting flanges properly. These are people who are supposed to know what they're doing. These are licensed tradespeople. North of 40,000 flanges now without a leak. Doubled their refining and upgrading capacity with the same maintenance force because they don't have to fix leaks anymore. 30% reduction in overall maintenance costs. Millions of dollars in savings. Direct bottom line benefit. Okay? This is real, right? This is real. And it doesn't matter whether you're working at CNRL and, you know, moving billions of dollars around, or you're working at a nonprofit and moving hundreds of dollars around. The impact is huge of doing this. Okay? So why don't companies do it? Why don't companies invest in competency? Could be. How about you guys? You guys are in the profit sector, right? Okay. Cost. What about anybody else? Why don't we do it? Time. Okay. Okay. Ding, 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 ding. Yeah. Okay. And the answer is all of the above. Okay. But if you want to grow your business, you need to grow your people. Everybody takes that slide, blows it up this big, hang it on the wall back at the office, right? Rule number one. Okay. We know you're supposed to do it. Everybody knows, everybody instinctively knows that this is a good idea, but we still don't do it. Okay. Everybody here know Douglas McGregor? Even the old guys at the back didn't go, yeah, we know. Douglas McGregor, he was a prof at MIT a bunch of years ago. I stepped on that cable and the colors changed. That's cool. Theory X and Theory Y in management, right? Theory X says basically, you know, people are dumb and they're lazy and they're stupid, and if we don't kick them in the tail, nothing will ever get done. Theory X management. Theory Y management says people come to work, they want to do well, they want to be valued, they want to feel that what they're doing matters, and they will drive themselves to perform in the right environment. Okay? These are kind of polar opposites on the management scale. Management actually swings back and forth between these things, but the majority of companies are still in this Theory X world. Okay? This is your typical Theory X manager, right? You do not want to be this guy, right? But we've all had this guy as our boss, right? And when we ask managers to say, well, Theory X or Theory Y, and they all go, oh yeah, I'm Theory Y, I love people, you know, shiny, happy, everybody, kumbaya, and all. Damn it, those people that work for me, if I don't do this, nothing would ever happen. Which would be funny if it wasn't tragic. The reality is a lot of companies drift back into this Theory X mode because they're still operating as though they're people. We're at the top of this scale. They're still playing Timbit hockey with people who are smart, with people who have skill. You can't do that. Okay. So we're all in agreement we should be investing more in our people. We should be investing in critical skills. We should be identifying what those critical skills are. We'll get to that and how to do that in a second. Okay. But it's really important to understand as well, and I'll say this as a training guy. Okay. A lot of training. You're just as good to take the money out back and start a bonfire with it for all the good it does. Okay. It's a $170 billion a year industry in North America. And some estimates put it at north of 70% of it doesn't actually generate performance gains. But we know that investing in people is good, right? Why not? Why do you reckon? Why do you reckon this is? There's that. Wrong training. How many people had to do another WMIS course this year? What's changed in WMIS since the first time you did a WMIS course? Okay. But that kind of stuff isn't particularly helpful, right? There's that. In fact, that's a big part of it. Because you're training people in new skills, do we let them apply them on the job? Okay. We know that the way that managers approach training and learning, both before and after, is actually generating the biggest piece of the benefit, far more than the learning event itself. It's the ongoing support, application, reinforcement of those skills on the job is what makes them stick and drives performance gain. We also know that 85% of training budgets get spent on the learning event itself, not on the pre and post activities. So with a calculation for statistical error, that's why north of 70% of this stuff doesn't have any impact. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. And some of it is hard to measure. You're right. What we found is if you focus on continuous learning on the job site and continuously reinforcing those higher level competencies, the productivity gains in that become obvious. The quality gains become obvious. You can't tie it directly to these people talk to each other better and they're not throwing things at each other. But there's an indirect correlation, and you can track that. Okay? Sometimes it is a very specific skill that needs to be trained, but then they still have to apply it when they get to the world. And what we find is managers will send people off to the training department to get fixed, and then they come back to work and they don't let them apply what they learned. In fact, some of them will tell them, no, that's not the way we do things here. We do things this way. So they wasted all the training dollars, and they saw no performance gain out of it. That's stupid. It is. That's just stupid. Okay? So it's the way you handle that training and the way you reinforce it, as well as the way you operate day to day with people in letting them think, in letting them grow, in letting them apply those soft skills is what drives performance gains. Okay? So the reality is when people say we can't afford to train, if you do this right, it doesn't actually cost you anything. Okay? So that just sort of sums up what was on the other slide. So where do you start? Let's assume I'm going to assume, well, except for you guys who are on the Oilers, that no one wants to be stupid. Sorry. You picked the wrong team, guys. Or someone picked it for you. Blame your agent. Blame your agent. Okay, where do you start? Assuming you don't want to be stupid, where do you start? That's part of it. How many people know all of the skills of everybody in their organization? Kinda. Okay. I'll tell another quick story. Has lunch showed up yet? Okay. Okay. All right. Hopefully, after I got them all charged up, they won't need coffee anymore. Okay, so there's some keys, and I don't want to. I'm not going to belabor this because I don't want to get in the way of lunch. So these are questions to ask yourself. You can ask yourself these questions during lunch. Are you doing task-based, very specifically task-based, technical, procedural stuff in training? Or are you focusing on some of these higher level skills? And how? Because if you focus, great that you brought up a hockey analogy, right? Because we're in Canada. If you focus on procedural stuff, you wind up with this. Everything runs in straight lines, and the guy who's on this straight line can't go pick up the puck over here because he can't, right? It's not his side, and he's not, and the stick doesn't go over there, right? So do you want this, or do you want this? Do you want, the thin red line and everybody marching and doing exactly what they're told and a bunch of toy soldiers, or you want a SEAL team? I know which one I'd rather be on. Okay. So we can look at this in terms of levels in the way we optimize this stuff. If anybody's interested, I can send you more data on this, but this is something called the People Capability Maturity Model. It's a human capital management model for maturity within organizations. Most organizations, they're somewhere down here. This is all ad hoc. This is your mom and pop where the boss decides today what's going to happen, and he might decide something completely different tomorrow, but that's okay because he's the boss. At this level, we're starting to have some structure and organization. Damn it! So the key is to hit it hard. Okay? So I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to stay here. Yeah, I stepped on, see that? So okay, I'm not going to touch it. So we have 5 levels. My client, Wayward, that was doing, and I came in 5 years after they started this competency program to look at it and help them improve it. 5 years, light years ahead of anybody else in their industry. Where do you reckon they are on this 5-level scale? What do you think? Here? Oh, there. And that somewhere in the middle of level 2. And that's despite having a corporate focus on doing this for over 5 years. This is a journey that's never ending. Okay? What you can look at on the training and development side, this is task-based stuff. It didn't change. I said I wouldn't touch it. Right? Training and development, that's task-based. Do the job you've got now. As you start moving up, you start looking at competency as a corporate asset, analyzing it, figuring out what it is, and moving your entire organization around core competencies that create value for your customers. And developing those instead of just how do you do the particular job that you're stuck in. At the next level, you're treating that as a corporate asset, the same way you would your machinery, plant and equipment. You're nurturing it, growing it, investing in it, because it permeates through the organization. High-level mentoring, which replaces, touched it again, which replaces going to the classroom. And it becomes an ongoing continuous improvement process all the way through the organization. So we start with developing individual competency, working through, now that you're good at that, now how do you work with other people and what competencies do we develop there? And then how do we motivate, manage, and reinforce that performance at the managerial level? This model is really, really cool, and we know that it drives significantly higher performance for organizations when they think about things this way. Like significantly, like millions of dollars worth of improvements. Okay? So how do you do it? Someone said you got to figure out what you want to do. I'm not going to hit the screen again. I'm going to bang on it. Identify, quantify, rectify. It starts with analysis. It starts with understanding what those critical skills are. How do the technical skills get applied in order to generate value? Because the technical skills by themselves, you know, unless you're a team of one, don't matter. Because no one can work by themselves, right? How do people, those underlying competencies, is it creativity? Is it collaboration skills? Is it the way people work and solve problems individually and collectively in teams? Okay. What is it that drives that performance beyond the technical? Quantify that and then map everybody against it. Someone said, ask your people what they want to learn. I'd go one step, ask them what they already know. Right? Herman Miller, furniture company out of Michigan, many years ago. The president, Max Dupree, he had a millwright working in the, who had retired and then died, because that's what you used to do in the 60s. That's what you used to do in the 60s. That's why we have the retirement age at 65, because you probably weren't going to last to 70. Anyway, this guy died. His widow invited, you know, folks from the company to the funeral. Max went to the funeral. He was the company president. He knew this guy as, you know, kind of Fred the millwright. Never really interacted. Company presidents don't really interact at that level. But he went to the funeral, and after the funeral, back at the house, talking with the, you know, the family and that, and his wife had brought out these books of poetry that the millwright had written. Beautiful, beautiful, creative poetry. And Max never knew that Fred, the guy with the coveralls and the wrench, could do that. Didn't know because he never asked, never cared. But how much more value could that organization have got out of Fred the millwright if they'd allowed him to express that creativity at work, to take advantage of those latent skills? Particularly you folks in the Bruins and the Flames, right, in the nonprofit world, where you don't have the luxury of having extra bodies kicking around, I'm going to assume, right? You need to understand those latent skills and take advantage of all of them, right? That's in the nonprofit, but it applies to you clowns and the Oilers as well, right? How do you know Talbot can't play center? Did you ask him? Maybe you should put McDavid in net. I don't know. Anyway, so quantify these skills, figure out what they are, not just the technical stuff and not just the stuff that's related. Figure out what people can do. quantify it, figure out what high performance looks like, track the gap, and then fill the gap. You do that through mentoring. The same approach you take in an apprenticeship. You don't learn how to do this in a classroom. It's too bad, because we're in a classroom. Okay? But you have to treat this as an ongoing mentoring relationship and grow those skills internally every single day. That's your primary role as a leader, is to grow those skills. Okay? The guru is whoever has the skills. So the janitor can teach this to the CEO if the skills that need to be transferred are skills that the janitor has and the CEO doesn't. Mentorship knows no hierarchy in a performance-based organization. In a hockey game, who's the leader? No! Whoever's got the puck. And the puck moves around. Right? That's what makes hockey so cool. It's not X's and O's. It's fluid. And the minute the game starts, who cares about the game plan? It's all about reacting and moving the puck around. And whoever has the puck's in charge now until they dump it. Then it's somebody else's problem. But that's the way it works. So your leadership can move around within the organization regardless of hierarchy in terms of delivering these skills. Different way of thinking about it. But remember, I was an officer and I got trained by a sergeant. Because he'd forgotten more about being a soldier than I would ever learn. You have to respect that. Honor those skills. If you do it the right way, using mentorship, using the skills that you have in your organization to grow more skill within your organization, it's like Rosie the Riveter. Okay? TWI, program from the 1940s, where we took people who knew nothing, who came a completely separate environment, and turned them literally overnight into useful, valuable, skilled, highly efficient, highly productive workers. We sent them all back to the kitchen after the war, but that's a different story. But we did that literally overnight. Okay? Sperry gyroscope turned a lens grinding apprenticeship using these internal mentoring methods from a 5-year apprenticeship to 6 months. 0 cost, no safety deficits, increase in productivity, no decrease in quality. That was in 1940. And we're smarter now. Okay? Supposedly. Okay? It's because of an absolute focus on valuing the skills and growing them. Okay? Well, there's that, right? But that's why they focused on generating that value, right? This is why this is why we won the war. Because we could outproduce the other guys. And we outproduced it with labor that we literally bootstrapped from nothing. Because all the people who were working in those factories were overseas fighting the war. Okay? So you follow the same plan, do, check, act cycle. It's iterative. You're constantly looking for these approaches, looking for the underlying skills, and then looking for opportunities in the everyday operation of your organization to learn and grow those skills. Okay? If you look for this stuff, the more you look for it, the easier it becomes to find it. And the easier it becomes to use these things as training opportunities and learning opportunities. There's no shortage of learning opportunities. Everybody's got them. Okay? Train your frontline leaders to do this. Look for them yourselves. Reinforce that we're always learning, right? So the outcomes, I'm almost at the end. I'm only way over. Okay, so your employee gets more job security because if you do this, they become better at pleasing the customer, which means you stay in business. They actually enjoy coming to work. You get all of them. They get to come to work from the neck up as well as the neck down, which is lots of fun. So they get more meaning. For you in management, what you wind up with is an organization that can heal itself. Very adaptable. It doesn't need to be told what to do. It just does it. Okay? You get an organization that works more like an organism. It's living. Okay? So it runs like your immune system, and it just reacts when there's a threat. It doesn't have to be told. It can react to threats it's already seen, and it can react to threats that it's never seen before. Let's face it, if managers had designed the immune system, we'd all be dead by Christmas. Because the next flu virus, none of us would know what to do, because the structure of the immune system wouldn't be able to react to it. Okay? We get whole person engagement, a much larger pool of skills that's constantly growing. We get better, happier customers and an improved bottom line, which means more of this for everybody, and that's hardly a bad thing. Okay? So I'm going to stop now before I bang on this. You got those? Okay. So one last quote from Yoda. Knowledge has to be improved, challenged, and increased constantly, or it disappears. It'll atrophy, just like sitting on the couch will atrophy your muscles. So you need to be asking yourself, what are you doing to grow this in your organization every single day? Okay? So that's it. Questions. Clear as mud, right? Okay. Now that I've fried all your brains, okay, we got a little exercise for you, which you can do over lunch. Okay. I was going to talk about it after lunch, but I want you all to grab a sandwich, because you've been here since, what time did you guys start? 8? Oh. Yes, I'm going to give them the instructions now, and then they can all bugger off for lunch. So what we're going to do, the exercise is simple. We're going to look at the process to start writing these competency-based descriptions, job descriptions. Okay. Start by, they handed all these out, right? Okay. Should give you the stick and you can throw it on the wall. Okay. It starts by understanding what it is that your organization actually cares about. Why do you exist? What really matters? Okay. If it's making money, you're in the wrong company. Seriously. The difference between Toyota and General Motors is that Toyota makes money to survive, and General Motors survives to make money. Think about that for a second. Completely changes the way you run your business. You have to make money because that's how you can sustain the mission. But if your mission is making money, you're in the wrong business. All right, so figure out what really matters. And then how do you display those core values, those core competencies that to support that through everything that happens in a job role? How do you express that on a daily basis? How do you express those values in your work? Then you get to flip the page. Okay? And think about, what are those competencies? Is it communication skills? Is it collaboration skills? Is it problem-solving skills? Is it decision-making skills that allows those values to be expressed to generate value for the customer? And then write the job description around those. And the outputs and outcomes and values that you want to generate within your organization and for your customer. And then you have a template that you can do that and scribble that on. Work in your teams. Try not to get shut out. Work in your teams, whether the same teams that we had before, that's fine. grab lunch first, because no one wants anybody to fall over because they starved to death, because I don't want that on my conscience. And I'll wander around and we'll talk about it and that, and then we'll get together after lunch and we'll go through this a little bit, okay? Okay, tools down. It's like Master Chef. Or whatever those cooking war shows are that. One quick question to start. How hard is that? You're doing it with lunch? It's hard? It's hard without lunch. And it's hard because people don't think that way. Organizations, we're not used to thinking that way. Right? It's supposed to be hard. If it was easy, we wouldn't call it work. So we're going to take a few minutes. When's our next? All right, so we're going to talk really, really quick. Quickly, step one, what really matters? Service. And you're in what kind of an organization? And who do you serve? Okay. How about here? What they said. Yeah, that's, yeah. Okay. You guys all did it? The Flames played as a team? Good. The Oilers split up into two groups and did it separately. That's what we expected. I'm just messing with you. How we did that because we actually had two groups within the group. Offense and defense. So, the guys at the back, the defensemen. What did you guys come up with? What really matters in your organization? Hmm? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. And you came out of where? Okay. Yeah, I lasted 3 months at McDonald's in high school, and no, that wasn't going to go. It's good while it lasted, I guess. How about you guys? Yeah. Okay. Very cool. So how do you express those values through the everyday work that you do? Start with the Bruins. Okay. 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 Just curious, is that the way you interrelate within the organization as well? Cool. You guys live the values every day. Cool. Love that. How about you guys? Okay. And so back here, we'll give it to you guys first. Okay to make it up. Okay. All right. And okay. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I was it's really interesting when you compare two companies and look at the way they operate when they're in exactly the same business. You know, like WestJet and Air Canada. Back when Air Canada was the people's airline and the government owned it, right? You know, we're not happy until you're not happy. It was like flying at the DMV. Well, it was, because their company value was efficiency, and they were great at moving cargo. Unfortunately, we're not cargo. Clive Beddoe, the guy who started WestJet, I had a chat with him years ago, and he said they were in the hospitality business and the entertainment business. And it completely changes the way you run your organization and the competency. Well, that's how they generate the experience. But they have slowly become just another airline. But back in the days when they had 20 jets and you knew everybody who flew with them, it was a really fun place to be. All right, so those values, you express that work ethic through the organization, through the way you operate. What are the underlying competencies? The soft skills, the pieces that enable your people to do what you put in number 2. We'll start here. Okay. 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 So you guys are WestJet. Well, you're what WestJet used to be. Just throw it at people.
Okay, next.
All right, so throw it at these guys.
Okay, Bruins, who's going to catch it?
Melissa's catching it, but I'll catch it.
Okay.
Tuukka Rask with a big save.
So when we were talking about bridges, we talked about some of those skills being compassion, empathy, and understanding.
Okay.
You're working with.
So really human skills.
Yep.
Okay. Some of that can be taught.
A lot of it can't.
Some of it can't. How many people got as far as the last part? I'm guessing probably not in any great detail. Good. Yeah, well, what I want you to do is go home with this, and you have a homework assignment. We gave them a homework assignment up at Fort Mac last week, too. How many people, because they all said that they were honest, and they had integrity, and they believed in these values, and they were hardworking and diligent. How many people did reckon have sent me their homework so far? Just saying. I'm guessing they got busy. But what I want you to do is think about this stuff, okay? Think about the organization you want to have. Think about what those competencies are that drive those behaviors, that generate the values for your customer. And then find ways to train those skills, to reinforce those skills every single day on the job. And grow that capacity. And I'd like you, I'm going to ask because I know you guys are all diligent and hardworking and honest and everything else. Take 3 of your current job descriptions and go through this exercise and measure them against that framework. And just see how they stack up. and then try and massage them into something that's more competency and values based, and see what that does in terms of fit for your organization, for the people. See what that does in terms of the way you onboard people, in terms of how you grow those people as they move through your organization. And particularly, I want you to think, I'm not going to, I could bang on the slides, but I'm not going to. Think of that Dreyfus scale. You want a team of Timbit hockey players? Or do you want experts? You want your organization, how do you want your organization to run? How do you expect your organization to run? Because that's going to change the way you treat them, it's going to change the way you hire them, it's going to change the way you develop people. And most people want to have competent and proficient, not novices and beginners. Any questions? Have I terrified you? Good. I actually lost a job a few weeks ago because I was told I couldn't come and speak because I scared the HR people. You can also ask questions. Yes. Yeah, you've got my contact information. Just shoot me an email or whatever, and I'm glad to talk. And if you develop these competency-based job descriptions, send them over to me. I'd love to see them. Love to see them, and just see where you're at and whether any of this sunk in. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
Would that help?
It can, as long as they don't have an internet connection. And I'll explain myself, okay? About 10 seconds after they started posting behavioral interview questions on the internet, every job seeker with a Google account found out what the interview questions were and what the right answers were. So you can game that system, right? There's nothing wrong with asking them, and they do drive to those underlying competencies that are important, but you got to take it with a grain of salt. A resume, on a scale of 0 to 1, in terms of predictive ability for job performance in the future, a resume is about 0.1, which means it's next to useless. Because everybody knows how to lie on a resume. Everybody knows how to put the keywords into the resume so that it comes to the top of the pile and doesn't get filtered out, right? And if you don't know, you can Google it. Monster will tell you how to do it. Even watching someone do the exact same job in another organization is only 50-50, because it's not your organization. It's a different culture. It's a different work environment with different people in it. Good. I should be scaring you, because all of that means, despite everything you do, it's a crapshoot. Okay? That's why that behavioral stuff, that Super Saturday stuff that those guys down in New Jersey are doing is so valuable. Because they can see what people are really like. Not whether they can game the question. Not whether they can fake their way through an interview. Right? It's how they really are, and whether they're a fit with the culture. Not that everybody can do that. But that's why we have probationary periods when you first hire somebody. So do the best you can, ask those kinds of questions, focus on those underlying competencies, find behavioral and situational questions that'll drive to the kinds of situations that demonstrate those competencies, but know when you're being gamed. Right? I hope that, does that, not that I want to scare you and not that I want to,
No,
but,
it does.
okay? Any other questions? Thank you.